A kindly warning to all our House of Hammer listeners. Some of the segments on this particular episode contain details of a more adult nature. Not wishing to offend anyone of a slightly nervous disposition, we feel it only right to give you a little advance notice. Thank you. There's something I'm meant to be doing. No idea. Hang on. Let's check the to-do list. Okay. I've fed Ingrid. Yeah, done that. I've played sellotape a sausage to the fridge with Ben. He really does not like losing. What's next? Oh yeah, proofread Kev's business plan. Okay, done that. How do you misspell PPI? Next. Oh yeah, and then I helped Adam tidy his room. So many gin bottles. But that's it, I've done everything. What the hell am I forgetting? Oh. Well, hello there, and welcome to the House of Hammer. Please do, come in. Apologies for my tardiness. I swear I would lose my head if it wasn't the only logistical way I can ingest beer. It's lovely to have you back with us, and if it's your first time, well, you're more than welcome too. Right, walk this way, come on. Now, where were we? Mary Celeste, Dick Barton, Dr. Morell, someone at the door. Probably best to leave that one closed. Ooh, cloudburst. Nice. Ha! Here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Black Widow. Now then, before we go any further, I should warn you, things get a little murky from here. I shall explain. We're all familiar with the term Black Widow, right? And no, I'm not talking about the species of spider, Latrodectus tradisimcotautus, that we're all familiar with. The term Black Widow is commonly used to describe a killer, a female killer. Reports vary somewhat on where the term originated for this purpose, but most signs seem to point to one Vera Renci of Romania, who allegedly confessed to poisoning 35 individuals, including her 2 husbands, multiple lovers, and her own son during the 1920s. Her mother died when she was 13 and moved to what is now called Serbia with her father. By the age of 15, she had become increasingly unmanageable and had frequently run away from home with numerous boyfriends, many of whom were significantly older than she was. Early childhood friends described Renci as having an almost pathological desire for constant male companionship and possessing a highly jealous and suspicious nature. Shortly before the age of 20, her first marriage was to a wealthy Austrian banker named Karl Schick, many years her senior, and they had a son named Lorenzo. Left at home daily while her older husband worked, she began to suspect that her husband was being unfaithful. One evening, in a jealous rage, Renci poisoned his wine with arsenic and began to tell family, friends and neighbours that he had abandoned her and their son. After approximately a year of mourning, she then declared that she had heard word of her supposedly estranged husband's death in a car accident. Shortly after hearing the news of her first husband's automobile incident, Renci remarried, this time to a man nearer her own age. However, the relationship was a tumultuous one, and Renci was again plagued by the suspicion that her new husband was involved in extramarital affairs. After only months of marriage, the man vanished, and Renci then told friends and family that he had abandoned her. After a year had passed, she then claimed to have received a letter from her husband proclaiming his intentions of leaving her forever. This would be her last marriage. although she didn't remarry, she spent the next several years carrying out a number of affairs, some clandestine with married men, and others openly. The men came from an array of backgrounds and social positions. All would vanish within months, weeks, and in some cases even days after becoming romantically involved with her. When connected to men she was openly having an affair with, she would invariably concoct stories of them being unfaithful and having abandoned her. She was caught after having poisoned her last lover, a bank officer named Milorad. His wife reported his disappearance to the police, who ignored her. But she pursued her own investigation and rapidly found that Vera was her husband's mistress. She went back to the police, who sent 2 inspectors to the chateau. She admitted to them that Milorad had been her lover, but that he had quit. Impressed by her beauty, wealth, and excellent reputation, the police abandoned their search. The wife went back to the police and started to ask questions, which should have been asked a long time ago. Where was her husband, Joseph? Where was their son? What happened to the numerous other men who people knew that were her lover and had also disappeared? The police went back to see her. Not only did she then deny that Milorad was her lover, which she had admitted before, but the police had a proof, a love letter sent to her by her lover. The police eventually got a search warrant and discovered a locked round cellar underground. In it were 35 spaces, each with a zinc-lined coffin inside. In the middle of the cellar were a red armchair, a big church candle, and an empty bottle of champagne. She told them it was all family members, but they insisted on opening one coffin, in which was the decomposed body of a man. They then opened all the other ones, in which they found the same thing. Arrested, she confessed that she had poisoned all of them with arsenic when she suspected they had been unfaithful to her, or when she believed their interest in her was waning. She also confessed to the police that, on occasion, she liked to sit in the armchair, surrounded by the coffins of all her former lovers. Whew! That's a big old bucket of yikes from me. To clean our palates somewhat, shall we talk about a Hammer film? Okay, The Black Widow, directed by Hammer stalwart Vernon Sewell, still finds us deep inside 1951. The story this time is about Mark, played here by Robert Ayres, a victim of a very early form of carjacking. Beaten and bloodied, he makes his way to the home of Mr. Kemp and his daughter Sheila, played by John Langdon and Jennifer Jane, respectively. Taking pity on the battered Mark, they take him in and call for medical assistance.
Good morning, Sheila.
Good morning, Doctor.
How is the patient?
Well, he seems to be more or less all right, except he's no idea who he is. He's lost his memory.
Oh, yes, has he? Dearie, dearie me.
I told him it'd probably be all right, trying to cheer him up. But would it mean he'll have to see a specialist?
Specialist? What's that for?
Well, I thought, a lost memory, maybe a psychiatrist could...
Sheila Kemp, a psychiatrist indeed. You'll be suggesting an astrologer next. Since when have I been calling in psychiatrists?
I'm terribly sorry.
And so you should be. Well, we haven't seen now.
Would you like me to take you up?
No, thank you. I'll see him with myself.
With the help of Sheila, Mark begins to repair his fractured life and memory. Flashes of his previous existence coming to him, his home and his wife begin entering his subconscious.
I don't know what it is. The trees. They're all bare. I'm walking up the avenue. I don't want to walk up it, but I have to. There's a house at the top. I can't see it, but I know it's there. If I go on, I'll come to it. And then there's Christy. She's waiting. Waiting for me. At the top of the avenue. She's in a house, I think. Christine. Christine. As soon as I see the house. Christine.
Returning to his homestead and his spouse Christine, with the returning Christine Norden filling this role, surely everything will be rosy now.
But it was your body they found in the car. They said so. They found your luggage and the number plates, and that's how they knew it was you.
That's how they thought it was me.
But then what happened?
Half an hour back, I couldn't have told you. But now I remember it all, everything. Some guy stopped my car and knocked me out. He must have pinched it and got killed, I guess. I lost my memory. Some people took care of me, but now it's come back, and here I am.
And these people, they brought you back?
No, nobody knows I'm here, apart from you and the servants. Where are the servants, anyway?
Oh, I sent them away. I meant to close up the house. That's why the furniture's like this. I just couldn't stand being here without you.
We head over now to the round table with myself, Adam Roach, Ben Taylorson, and Kev Moore.
Okay, we're back at Gilston Park in January 1950. Any ideas why it took till 22nd of October 1951 before this was released? I've got a theory.
All the post-production work, Kev, all the special effects. That's all it could possibly be.
Changing it into 3D. It was all that.
Yeah.
All the horses.
They could only find a purple widow.
Nice.
Well, I've got a theory that it was too close to having to hold as far as location, and the fact that it was another film that was snided out with horses, which I'm sure Smokey's really happy about.
Delighted. Over the moon. Ecstatic. Yay. Yay, horses.
There was a scene where they were clip-clopping through. That's what horses do. They were clip-clopping through a yard.
Clip, actually, Ben.
And
common misnomer.
Maybe down south. And honestly, I could smell them. That's how horsey the whole scene was. I could smell the horses.
Oh yes, it was more horsey PPPs. Only this time it was based in Yorkshire. That was basically like, we're Cockneys.
Excuse me, don't pretend to be posh, Kev. Right? Thank you.
Well, let's face it, it's as bad as those trying to pretend they're in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
It's like the narrator from Big Brother doing a duel with Richard Osman. It just won't work here, Kev, I'm afraid. We can call you out on this thing. It's a very horsey film, isn't it?
G7 in Oakley
They should have
Court.
called this The Black Beauty.
Jodhpurs ahoy.
I think it's
Ahoy. It's a great name for a film. Why
great.
would that been used?
another one for the
copyrighting
bingo card, though, isn't it? A title that really doesn't mean anything to the film.
Well, yeah. No, I'd agree, Smokey, because
No.
there ain't no widow. Is all I'm saying.
She is.
No,
She actually
she's not.
pretends that
No,
she's
she's
a widow.
not.
She
She thinks she is.
she's-
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there.
playing the facade of a widow.
Excuse me. It's black and white. That will do.
Wow, that's how far we've come, isn't it?
She's a whack blido.
As the kids say.
Exactly.
That's whack, Blido.
What, those on the estate near the
That's the one.
supermarket?
In Yorkshire. Yes, that's the one.
Yes. Hello, I'm from Lancashire.
I'm from Worcestershire.
It begins anyway with a very risky way of nicking a car for a start off.
Oh, I have much to say on this.
Oh, go on. Please do.
So, a man says to himself, I know how to get a car because I don't have a car. I'll lie in a country lane, count on 1950s car headlights to be able to pick me out of the road when a car comes down and reveal me just in time for an approaching car to stop. Then I'll the guy on the head with my carefully concealed blackjack and go for a drive along the cliffs. Oh no! It's like the worst plan of all time. And the whole setup takes 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes, and that's including credits. You get this probably the worst constructed plot of all time. A man lying in a lane, not a lane page, by the way, just a country lane. And it's the worst plot.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked out well if the driver had been the driver at Cloudburst, would it really?
I was going to say. Picture 2.
Yeah, exactly, and it would have been a very short film. But what I would say about this, and to move it sort of into the broader strokes of the entire plot, is you could argue quite a lot happens in 50 minutes, and yet not a lot happens in 50 minutes. But I did see, because this was originally a radio play, and a radio series, in fact, across several episodes, and I could really see that episodic nature in despite the fact it's only 50 minutes long. I could definitely see how this could be stretched out. I got a real feeling of the original Fugitive series. So you've got a guy who, he doesn't know who he is. He ends up in a society and they befriend him, and he's like, he integrates into their life, and all of a sudden something twists and he has to go back to his ordinary life, and he gets to his ordinary life and, oh my God, it's all different to what he expects, and then, he's been double crossed. I could definitely see this playing out really nicely over, 6 weeks on the radio, or 6 nights on the radio, or whatever it happened to be. Yeah, I was quite taken with the plot, not so much with the execution, perhaps.
Yeah, the thing is, it starts with this thing, a man being made an amnesiac, and then, as you say, Ben, he gets assimilated into a different way of life. And then he sort of remembers where he comes from and goes back to that, and that's when the real plot kicks off. But the problem is, between the setup, which is 3 minutes, 3 minutes, it's insane. There's so much happens in the first 3 minutes.
That's a quarter of the film.
I think Adam was boiling an egg while watching it, by the sound of it.
It wasn't even medium rare.
Soft boiling an egg.
God Christ. Yeah, my toast wasn't even finished. The problem is, you get 3 minutes of burning death and all this lying in a lane. And then all of a sudden there's an interminable 15 minutes of Johnny No Memory wandering around a farm, commenting on horses. And it's like, this is slowed down. And then you get the proper plot. And I think you're right, Ben. I definitely think this would have worked as a more episode. It would have worked as a longer film, which is something I never really thought I'd ever say about a film. But I think this needed a bit more fleshing out. But yeah, the setup thing is, the first act is just all over the shop.
It would be interesting to see if that it is just an anomaly online that says that this film is supposed to be 13 minutes longer. Yeah. So we've got a 50-minute version, but the original version is 63 minutes long. Yeah. So that would be interesting to see what we've lost.
I've not seen any reference anywhere to the longer version.
No, I've dug deep, so there is only this 52-minute version.
Yeah. So I mean but that's by the by. I think something you hit the nail on the head there, Ben, was the fact that it's got a decent enough plot, but the execution really lets it down, because there are dozens of ways that you could have gone with this, and it didn't go the way it should have done in lots of places. You could have made more of him, maybe not, as you say, the sort of the. What did you call him? Johnny No Memory and horses.
Johnny No Memory. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe not as much of that, but maybe more of the possible amnesiac romance with the farmer's daughter, and then the sort of the discovery of the deceit of his actual wife. And it's you could have made
amnesiac
a lot more
romance. Yeah. Forget me now.
If we're not talking a date rape drug, Cam, I'm talking about he's had a bonk on the head. Okay, so well, that's true. Anything can happen up in those wild ways.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
wild Westphalian.
Unfortunately, it didn't go on so many of those ways, and that unfortunately is massively to the film's detriment, because it could have been so much better than it was.
There are a couple of plot lines as well that seem to have been abandoned. So one is that the doctor mentions right at the beginning, when he's trying to get him out of his sort of amnesia state, that he was obviously fleeing in high sort of emotion from something, which alludes to the fact that he knew that his wife was perhaps having an affair, but that never comes back into the plot particularly. The other thing is there's a very passing line towards the end that you may have picked up on. I only picked up on a second viewing, that the guy at the beginning who clubs him on the head and steals his car could well have been set up, paid for by his wife's lover.
Yeah.
But again, it that doesn't come across in a first viewing. It just comes across as a total red herring that some idiot has stolen his car, then driven it off a cliff. I have to say it as well, as an aside. The scene where he drives it off a cliff. So he's tearing away, and you've got these two motorbikes racing, and it's all sped up, and it's actually quite effective. It's all sped up. But there's a bit where he like rides through some roadworks, and all of a sudden a guy in the middle of the night, apparently, like sort of tries to wave him down in the road. But it doesn't stop him flying his car off a cliff. It's clearly a model, but it's also very enjoyable. And his car explodes in a way in which 2020 cinema would be pleased about. Never mind 1951 cinema. But yeah, it's there are a couple of examples there of things that could have been fleshed out, or maybe were in the original edit. Going back to what Smokey was saying,
possibly
that might have made it a bit more of a satisfactory watch.
Playing chicken with roadworks is probably my favourite part of the film. There's also the whole kind of setup where you've got him amnesiac, completely amnesiac, and you've got this doctor that's pumping him full of unexplained drugs. It's just like, I'm going to give you an injection so that you can remember. He doesn't even look at the dose or anything. Doesn't, think...
What's he injecting him with, Kev? I'd love to know what that is.
It's like the opposite of forget me now. It's remember me now.
It's bleach.
Yeah.
It's ivermectin.
But I do love the fact that you've got this mystery that, again, like you said, Smokey, they could have really played on this, and they probably did a lot more of this on the radio play, thinking about it, where there's a quote where they say he's been missing for 3 days and no one's reported it. So you start thinking, could he actually be a wrong-un? Or does he have a wife and 6 kids? You just don't know. But they don't give you any time to play with this and don't throw up any more possibilities. And I feel like that's kind of a missed opportunity, if you like. But also, another one, right? Here's a mystery for you. The opening title card is Black Widow. Everywhere that we've seen it, it's called The Black Widow. What is this film called? Is it Black Widow or The Black Widow?
A Black Widow.
A Black Widow.
Well, talking of A Black Widow then, here's Adam.
A small word of warning. This section does contain some rather grisly descriptions of crimes. If you find yourself offended or triggered by the gruesome details of crime, then it might be advisable to skip this altogether. In 2014, Kelly Cochran admitted her lover, Christopher Regan, into her house, and the two began to make love. During their passion, the door was suddenly flung open, and in strode Kelly's husband, Jason Cochran, brandishing a .22 rifle. He aimed at his wife's lover and dispatched him with a single shot to the head. Rather than scream in terror, Kelly merely rose from the bed and fetched a concealed buzzsaw. You see, this had been the plan all along. After admitting her affair to her husband, Jason, he told her that he would only forgive her if she helped him murder her lover. They dismembered Regan with the buzzsaw, disposed of his remains, and went about their lives once more. But little did Jason know that Kelly was quietly seething about having to do away with her lover, and in revenge, waited until February 20th, 2016, to take it, by first giving him an overdose of heroin and then smothering him for good measure. In April 2018, she was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 65 years for the killings, and declared upon her conviction that her husband had forced her to kill the only good thing in my life. I still hate him, and yes, it was revenge. I evened the score. And so it was that Kelly Cochran became the latest in a very long line of partners who choose deadly measures to rid themselves of their spouses. Take Amy Archer Gilligan, for instance, a nursing home proprietor who killed not only her second husband, Michael, but also a great number of her elderly, ailing patients. Using arsenic and strychnine as her weapons of choice, Gilligan was convicted of killing at least 5 of her nursing home inhabitants, but police fear that her tally may reach as high as 48. She pleaded guilty and was sent to an asylum where she lived until the age of 94, passing away in 1962. And if her story is stirring a memory inside you somewhere, that's because her modus operandi served partly as the inspiration for the famous play and film Arsenic and Old Lace. In 1945, children playing in the woods in Hamilton, Ontario found a torso. After an investigation, it was found to have belonged to a Mr. John Dick, and soon afterwards his wife, Evelyn, was arrested on suspicion of his murder. Evidence showed that John had been murdered in their home, dismembered with a saw, and all but the torso had been destroyed in the furnace. She was tried and convicted, but upon appeal was released on a technicality. The thing is, the investigation turned up something else quite gruesome. In a suitcase in the attic, police found a block of cement, and when they cracked it open, they found inside the mummified body of a baby boy, which turned out to be her son, Peter. For this murder, she was sentenced to life in prison, but incredibly, after serving only 11 years, was released on parole with a new identity. And here's where it gets really creepy. Evelyn Dick vanished. She was never seen again. And no one knows where she went or if she's even still alive. And then you had Mary Wilson of County Durham in the UK, who killed so many of her husbands that she even began to joke about it. 4 men married her, and all 4 met their deaths very swiftly. She soon earned the nickname the Merry Widow of Windy Nook, and was so blasé about her crimes that she actually asked her local undertaker for a group discount on coffins. At one of her wedding receptions, a guest asked her what they should do with all the leftover sandwiches, to which Mary replied, "We'll save them for his funeral." Really? She was so bored of church services that when husband 4 choked to death on her poison, she didn't even bother going to his funeral. Finally, the very slow-to-act police arrested her, and she was swiftly brought to justice. A cautionary tale now to all those husbands of butchers, by the way, courtesy of John Price from Australia. You see, he'd taken up with butcher Catherine Knight, who wasn't that tolerant when it came to the men in her life. In fact, her first marriage to David Collette is perhaps the worst first day of any marriage in history. It began by David happily skipping to the church to wed his bride, but being pulled aside by her mother. The old girl said to me to watch out. You better watch this one or she'll f***ing kill you. Stir her up the wrong way or do the wrong thing and you're f***ed. Don't ever think of playing up on her. She'll f***ing kill you. And that was her mother talking. She told me she's got something loose. She's got a screw loose somewhere. David was not put off by the warning. More fool David. On their wedding night, after spending the whole day getting married, drinking heavily, dancing the night away, and then performing for his wife 3 times, David had the audacity to fall asleep. 3 times was not enough for Catherine, and rather than shake him awake and demand a 4th, she decided instead to strangle him. Thankfully, her hours-old marriage vows prevented her from going through with it completely. After many years of violence, Catherine finally left David Collette for David Saunders, and after stabbing him several times with scissors and then killing his dog as a warning of what would happen if he cheated on her, he also checked out. After a couple more icky years of violent relationships, Catherine settled on John Price. But after several howling arguments, one of which ended in Catherine stabbing John in the abdomen, he began to see that this love was doomed. In fact, so scared was he of Catherine that he told his co-workers that if he ever failed to turn into work, the reason would be that Catherine had murdered him. Well, this turned out to be tragically prophetic. On the 29th of February 2000, Price took out a restraining order on Catherine Knight and went home, but she was waiting there for him. When he tried to escape, she tackled him and stabbed him 37 times, then skinned him, cut off his head, cooked parts of his body, and served them along with a variety of vegetables at a specially laid dinner table, each place marked with a small card bearing the names of his children. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with orders never to be released and remains in the Silverwater Women's Correctional Centre in New South Wales to this day. But perhaps the most famous Black Widow ever well, actually now the second most famous bearer of that name after Scarlett Johansson, is Patrizia Reggiani, the former wife of fashion executive Maurizio Gucci. After their divorce, boiling with resentment at him, and jealous of his new relationship with designer Paola Franchi, Patrizia arranged Maurizio's assassination, which took place on the morning of March 27th, 1995, when he was shot as he arrived for work at the Gucci offices. After a swift trial, Reggiani was convicted of ordering the killing and sentenced to 26 years in prison. In October 2011, she was offered parole for a work release program, but turned it down, saying that, "I've never worked a day in my life, and I'm certainly not going to start now." She was released in October of 2016 and was played in the recent screen hit House of Gucci by Lady Gaga. So just remember, spouses, if you're in the bad books and you see your partner sharpening the largest kitchen knife excessively, it might be worth putting in the effort and coming home with some garage flowers, some milk tray, and an apology. Or just run for the hills. You know, like today.
I do think it misses a couple of opportunities in the story. Like, don't you find when you're watching this film, oh, I bet this happens, and I bet this happens, and nothing happens apart that you theorise. Like, I came up with about 15 different variations of the story that I thought would have been a bit more interesting. Like, the Doctor seems really important at the beginning. And by the way, why is he Scottish when he's not Scottish?
Because it's close to Scotland, Yorkshire.
But why make him Scottish if he can't do a Scottish accent? Either get a Scottish actor or just don't make him Scottish. Anyway. But he seemed really important in the story. And I thought it would have been a great twist if later on it turns out that he was somehow involved, or maybe he was the wife's lover or something like that. And I was thinking, oh, it's got to happen. And then he just vanishes, and it was like, what's the point of all that Doctor in the beginning?
There wasn't really important characters at all. I mean, apart from the three mains.
Yeah, that's what I mean about this film. It's so short. There's crime at the beginning, then you get 15 minutes of horse commentary, and then you get, like, you know, it gets into the whole Black Widow thing, and then by the time it's finished, it's like there's like 3 separate stories. Really, yeah. I think it makes sense, but like you were saying, Kev, earlier on about there's so many plot details that don't really add up, and I think they do add up. But they require such a lot of work on your part. I think it's very lazy filming. It's like, maybe there's more in the 63-minute cut that we're missing. But there's just so much in this film that felt underbaked. And it's a real shame because that's a germ of a good film there. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the biggest issue is it's utterly devoid of tension. And barring the first 3 minutes and the last 5 minutes, because the first 3 minutes, for all it's rushed, are quite, you know, exciting, and the last 5 minutes, you know, almost saves the film in so much that it gives it something that you remember it for, with no spoilers. But the rest of it, I mean, I think it's already been said, or at least alluded to, that there's a number of opportunities for characters to be more scurrilous than they are, or perhaps more innocent than they are even, and the tension to be ramped up thinking, oh, is X going to discover Y, or, you know, is Y going to do Z, you know, and that kind of thing, and it just doesn't happen. It's all played out very much like a melodrama, potboiler type thing, when it really should have ramped up into sort of thriller, or even, you know, sort of, not horror, but you know what I mean, a sort of...
Mystery.
Yeah.
Suspense.
That would have done.
Suspense, perfect. Even sort of violent thriller, you know, and it never really gets there. I mean, the violence that occurs, bar the initial 3 minutes where he gets a clubbing, all happens off screen. I mean, in part to the, I would say, arguably to the benefit of the film. But yeah, it's just a 50-minute missed opportunity, and it's so frustrating because I did like the plot. I really did. I mean, I'm not saying it's wholly original because it's not, but I liked what happened. And as I said before, I saw the potential in a longer and perhaps a different medium. But it's it's an utterly unfulfilling watch. It really is.
Just to go back to something you said there, Adam, I think you really got it there, was that everything here on paper is great. As you say, it's such it's a 3-act. It's
the log line of it is brilliant. It's like, put it into a paragraph, you go, wow, I want to see that film.
Yeah, it's great. You've got the peril, and then you've got the recovery, then you've got the discovery, right? That's it. That's great. Unfortunately, it's just, this is a classic example of missed opportunities. And it's not only in just the plot either. It's the fact that this could have been really, really ramped up into so many movie stereotypes that would have actually helped it. So, say the main part, Mark, which is Robert Ayers, right?
Yeah.
Make him fucking Cary Grant, make him Burt Reynolds, make him an all-American hero, right? Then you've got the wife, make her a stone-cold femme fatale.
He's all Canadian
fair
hero.
Enough. Sorry, my fault.
We don't have Americans yet. We're always having Canadians.
Who cares? Same country. So,
or Brazilians.
Exactly. So, but then you've got the best friend who is, cheating on his friend and with his wife, make him an absolute scumbag. Then you've got the farmer's daughter, make her a complete damsel in distress, ramp all of that up. And then you've got, stereotypically a really good story in the making. But what do? They just dither around. And the cheating couple, what do? They just, I suppose we could kill him, even though he was dead, but he got better. That's for you, Ben. But they just lackadaisically just sort of go, I suppose he'd better not leave the house then, so we might as well kill him and get the money. And it's just like, it's also wishy-washy.
No, I disagree, because I feel like Christine Norden really does play it full tilt. She is the proper noir villain in this. We've already seen her before.
That's what I'm saying. Not enough.
Yeah, I know, but that's only because she doesn't get enough screen time. That's all that is.
That's true.
We'd already seen her in A Case for PC-49. She was Della Dainton in that. And this is one of her other few film appearances. I think I actually commented that I've seen her full filmography, if you like, and she's got nearly as many films as she has husbands.
Doing some research for this episode led me to reading all about Christine Norden, who plays Christine Sherwin, the titular Black Widow, who isn't a widow. Anyway, I discovered several interesting things about Christine. Number 1, she was the first entertainer to land on the Normandy beaches after D-Day. Number 2, in 1967 she became the first actress to appear topless on Broadway in the comedy Scuba-Dooba. And number 3, upon her death, she had part of the planet Venus named after her as a tribute to her being a forerunner of the modern sex symbol. There are conflicting reports as to exactly what part of Venus. Some say a crater, others say it's a peak. Next time I'm there, I'll look it up. But the 4th interesting thing about Christine Norden is that she was born in Sunderland. And that's very interesting to me, because that's near where what I live like. And it's even closer to where I was born. Okay, as facts go, it's not quite on the scale of having a Cytherean chasm or similar named after her, but still. And as an aside, the word Cytherean is generally used to refer to things from or related to the planet Venus, rather than the regular adjectival form of the name, Venerian. This is due to the latter having an unfortunate similarity to the related word venereal, as in venereal disease. And with that, we skipped seamlessly back to Sunderland, which, for those that don't know, is a port city in northeast England with a population of around 200,000. Its origins can be traced back to the 7th century, but its golden age came over 1,000 years later, when, in the 18th century, it was renowned as the greatest shipbuilding port in the world. Around that time, it was also the location of one of the worst disasters in British history. On the 16th of June 1883, the town's Victoria Hall was the scene of a tragedy. At the end of a magic show, performers began distributing treats to the kids who were sat in the stalls. Excited children from the gallery, approximately 1,000 of them, keen not to miss out, began rushing down the stairs towards the stage. But at the bottom of the staircase, the door had been opened inward and bolted in a way so only to leave a gap wide enough for one child at a time to pass. As 1,000 children surged down the stairs, there was a deadly crush. 183 children were killed. A subsequent inquiry recommended that public venues be fitted with a minimum number of outward opening emergency exits, which led to the invention of the push-bar emergency door system. This law remains in force today. Nowadays, Sunderland is best known as the home of mass car production, an annual international air show, and a perennially underachieving football team. Taking a look at some of Sunderland's more famous sons and daughters over the years has thrown up something of an eclectic mix of talents. There's Eric Boswell, the guy that wrote the Christmas song Little Donkey, TV architect chappie George Clark, famous monk St Bede, musician Emily Sandé, all-round extraordinary woman Gertrude Bell, although she was actually born in nearby Washington, but trust me, it's close enough. And as an aside, yes, another aside, our American listeners may be interested to know that this Washington, Washington, Tyne and Weir, is the ancestral settlement of the Washington family, which George Washington descended from. So your Washington is named after our Washington. Kind of. But does it have a wildfowl wetlands centre though? That's what I'm asking. Niche content for the Northeast listener there. And so, we eventually get to the point of this segment if anyone can now remember what that was. In fact, I might not actually have explicitly said. But here we are, and what I'm asking is, well, what I'm telling you is, what notable acting talent Sunderland has nurtured and pushed out into the wider world. Here we go. There's Ernest Lattinger, star of stage and early sound films of the 1920s. He was once described by T.S. Eliot in a letter to Virginia Woolf as magnificent, the greatest living British histrionic artist in the purest tradition of British obscenity. I think that's a compliment. Anyway, next up we have James Bolam, best known for his roles in British sitcoms The Likely Lads and Whatever Happened to the Likely Lads. But let's not also forget his role in Grandpa in My Pocket, where he starred as a grandfather who owned a magical shrinking cap that only his 10-year-old grandson Jason knew about. This cap enabled him to shrink to about 4 inches tall, and thus all kinds of charming and life-affirming shenanigans between Jason and his grandpa occurred. Oh, Bolam also starred as the most prolific serial killer in modern history in Harold Shipman, Dr. Death. And we move on to Alan Brown, best known as Alan Howard in Coronation Street. We'll eventually be seeing him in a Hammer context when we get to The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, where he played an uncredited young blood. He shouldn't feel too bad about not being credited though, because neither was Oliver Reed in that film. Gib McLaughlin was born in Sunderland in 1879 and made over 150 film appearances between 1921 and 1959, perhaps most notably in The Lavender Hill Mob. But let's finish where we started, with Christine Norden. She actually only made 9 films before she buggered off to America, and we've already talked about one of them in a previous episode as she was Della Dainton in A Case for PC-49. She married 5 times and returned to the UK in the 1970s. Her last TV credit was in 1987 as Laura Poindexter in Inspector Morse. She died just a year later, aged 63. Having admitted to numerous affairs with both men and women over the years, including some very well-known stars, her memoirs, published posthumously, describe a champagne lifestyle and were deemed too racy for publication. Quite a remarkable life for the daughter of a bus driver from Sunderland.
It's a shame that she's not used more, but I feel like there is some really good tension as well when you can see that he's actually figured it out and he knows how much peril is in, to the point where he actually sees a sack of quicklime in the cellar. Don't know why anybody would have a sack of quicklime except to do away with somebody, because I've looked at the uses for it, and unless you're actually, into heavy steel production or maybe heavy agriculture, not a great deal you can do with it. You can't feed it to a horse for a start off. Although...
Thank God you're saying this.
Isn't it used to make bodies decompose quicker?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Lime,
But yeah, that's about it, really. That's all you're going to find it for in a country house.
Yeah.
It's the business plan, isn't it? It's all.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking, Adam.
It's all about the planning.
It's Kev's Achilles heel.
God bless you.
I do love the fact that he kind of is caught, and he's basically having to pay his way out of this, and he offers to pay his way out of this, and then she kind of counters and goes, well, you know what? I could just bump you off anyway and take all the money, which is a great sort of counter to it all.
It gives the audience an out. It gives the character an out that doesn't take it. So it allows you to enjoy the ending with no regrets. You know, I mean, that's decent film writing, to be fair. You know, I always like that when a character is given an opportunity they don't take, even if it's a character you're meant to sympathise with. It's a sign of good film writing is that you've said, oh well, they had their chance and didn't take it, so you know, it's not my responsibility as a viewer now that X is going to happen to Y. So yeah, you know, I'd agree with that. What I would say about this film is that they're if you pardon the pun, that there are plot holes so big you could drive a car through them and off a cliff. In fact, because there are many opportunities for Mark to go to the police, for example, when he realizes that his wife and lover basically are celebrating the fact that he's dead before he's dead, and there are several other things that occur where you think, well, you know, why are you doing that? Which again is another reason why when we get to my rating and everyone's rating, I can't rate it particularly highly, despite the fact I want to. That's the most frustrating thing. I want to like this film.
I think you should go with your heart. I definitely think you should always go with your heart when it comes to these ratings.
Definitely. Well, going with your celebrating your dead before you're dead then, Ben, here's me talking about Just That Thing. During our leisurely stroll through these hallowed halls of the House of Hammer, like Mark Sherwin in The Black Widow, we'll come across quite a few people that appear to die but then get better. And that's before we even start thinking about the Count with the big teeth. It's not a new plot twist either. It was quite big in biblical times and has been ever since, though I doubt it was for the insurance back then. It's subsequently become quite an old trope in fiction. From Sherlock's watery disappearance to the sunny weekend at Bernie's, the undeadening of a character for one reason or another is a great device for any writer who wants to spice things up a bit. Even Shakespeare's Julius Caesar has the deceased Italian hang around his own play out of spite, and yet again, not for the insurance. I could literally spend days going through all the bits about fictional characters dying or not without even touching comic books and their various media spin-offs. But I've not got enough port to see me through that, so instead I'll pick out a few of the more interesting or downright oddball schemes that actually happened in real life. The one that immediately springs to my mind is the pseudocide of John Darwin, who must have been so notoriously bad at canoeing that when he was lost to an unusually calm North Sea in springtime 2004, nobody suspected a thing. He was awarded a death certificate that probably went next to his swimming certificate on the wall next door a couple of years later. But he was a smart cookie who collected on his insurance and played a very long game. Along with his wife, Anne, they were caught 5 years later, possibly thanks to their love of the hats, cigars, or the majesty of Van Halen in Panama. The son of Rafa Nassib claimed her life insurance in 2016 after producing a death certificate. It stated she'd been killed in a car accident in Zanzibar. Apparently, her condition improved enough, though, to be arrested after flying to Canada on her own passport. Maybe as some kind of ill-informed double bluff, this once again proves that, for the most part, criminal intelligence is something of an oxymoron. The phrase doing a Reggie Perrin became common thanks to the 49-year-old British Labour MP John Stonehouse. In order to avoid mounting debts and the Czech Secret Service he'd been working for, he left his clothes on a beach in Miami, walked into the sea, and he was never heard from again. Or that, at least, was the plan. Stonehouse had swum around a cove to the next beach, picked up some belongings, and using the passports of 2 dead constituents, made his way to Melbourne to start a new life. A month later, he aroused the suspicions of a bank teller, who called the police after mistaking him for Lord Lucan, who, by the way, is still the winner at doing a bunk. This pure coincidence propelled the first Reginald Perrin book into the bestsellers lists and to the TV later on. Though you probably haven't heard of Timothy Dexter yourself, you most definitely would have if you were part of Boston's high society in the early 1800s. More by accident than design, he became one of the richest men there, but cash doesn't buy class. The noble-born would snub him at every opportunity, and with ideas well above his station, he called himself a lord in hopes that this would bring him more fame. After years of increasing wealth and disapproval, he decided it was time to see how everyone really felt about him, so he faked his own death and organised a very grand funeral. On the big day, Dexter watched as those he was supposedly closest to were unsurprisingly less than mournful. Among those were his wife, that he'd already coincidentally pronounced dead a few years earlier. There are some delightfully odd tales of fakery throughout the centuries, but I'll leave you with one that starts off by echoing the plot of The Black Widow quite closely. Texan boxing coach Ramon Souza found out his wife was plotting to kill him in order to inherit his money. With the help of police, he hatched a plot to stage his shooting by a bargain basement hitman who'd been hired by his conniving consort. The plan worked and enough evidence was gathered to ensure Maria Souza's conviction in 2015. Unfortunately, poor Ramon still sleeps with one eye open to this day. What's the thing we can take away from all this, I hear you ask? For me, it's don't bother faking your own death. It'll only end in tears somewhere along the way. Well, I think we're just about winding things up here, so let's talk about what we thought of The Black Widow, or Black Widow, depending on what day it is. Adam, what's your thoughts and rating?
Well, it's a very lopsided film. Like, it begins very strongly, and then there's this very dull second act. Then it kind of gets back into the story. I think it would have worked as a longer film, and I can't believe I've ever said that about any film before. So, new territory for me. I think there's a lot to enjoy about it. Yeah, God, that film could be 50 hours long. I think there are things to enjoy. I think the music in this film, no one's mentioned this yet, is phenomenal.
It's excellent.
It's so moody.
Yeah.
And I really found it a real forerunner of that gloomy beauty of Hammer horror movies. There is a sequence in it where he arrives home, shall we say, after sort of rediscovering his memory. That is total Hammer horror. And he gets to the front door and he looks around and you feel that sort of isolated, oh crap, there's a shadow over his shoulder kind of Hammer horror feel. And I thought, wow, I can really see Hammer blueprints there. That said, the execution throughout the whole thing is not great. There are a couple of fun bits, like there's a dream sequence where he describes a dream to a doctor and you get this kind of like, early special effect where he says, I saw a woman, and it's Christine Norden. She sort of comes in this fuzzy, like, static shot. So
Smoking a fag as well, which I liked. I thought
I
that
was
was cool.
expecting a theremin in that shot as well.
There's a lot in it that's good. There's a ton in it that's terrible. It's a quite disjointed, lopsided film, but I don't hate it. So I would say I'm going to give it a 6 because it's just slightly above average.
Yeah, cool. Smokey, what's your thoughts?
I can't really do. Yeah, I do. I can't really do. Thank you, mate. I can't really disagree with what Adam said there. All I'll just add to it is repeating what I've said before. I just think it's a missed opportunity. It's one giant missed opportunity. You've got 50 minutes. All right. Do you know what? Scratch that. Right. Make this an hour and ramp everything up to 11. And you've got the makings of a really good, solid British thriller. And it just let itself down at pretty much every turn. There are a couple of decent redeeming features to it. We didn't mention, by the way, talking of plot lines that went nowhere, which is that he's having a walk around the farm and he knows what's wrong with a horse, and he goes, well, maybe you know something about horses then.
Oh, yeah.
Does he? Because they don't go anywhere with that. So God knows how he knew what to do with a horse, because that was just weird. Maybe he'd read Animal Farm or something. I don't know.
Maybe he's from Denmark.
Maybe. Oh, nice.
Maybe he watched Emmerdale.
Maybe he's eaten in France. I don't know. But
so pure, Kev. You're so pure. He's from Emmerdale.
Is he cute?
So much.
He's so cute. No, it's just a missed opportunity, but I'm going with Adam. I didn't hate it. It could have been so much more. And we've said this about a couple of Hammer films over the last year. It could have been so much more. It could have been so much better. So I was an hour in between a 5 and a 6, but after talking to you lads, I'm going to go with a 6 as well. It's just slightly above average from what we've seen so far, but it's nowhere near any of the better Hammer films we've seen along the way.
Benjamin, what did you think to it?
It's
wow.
I quite often, I talk about films where I feel I can pick out what the element is that's wrong with it. You can say, oh, it's it's been badly directed or it's been badly written. And I don't think either of those things are right here. I think I don't say this very often, I think it's been badly produced. I think the broadest strokes are what's wrong with this. Yeah. I don't think that you could point a finger at the scriptwriter or at the director. I think it's really well directed in honesty, and I think it's very well acted. But I think it's badly produced, and what I would say is I think the ending is terrific, and I think it elevates the film, and as I said all along, it's and I agree with everything that's been said by you lads. It's a missed opportunity. I'd give it a 6 as well, and I really, really, really want to give it more. Mm-hmm. I want to love this film. I have a funny feeling about this film more than any other film we've seen so far, where I feel as though the others have been able to judge on their merit. This is the first one I've been disappointed by the fact that I've given it the mark I have, because I want to give it more, but I can't. But it should have been more.
I feel like I'm the bad guy here because it's good. It's
it?
Good as a program filler.
Or one
16. Yeah, no, I feel like it's just a decent program filler, but that's it. But then that's all they were producing anyway. It's a bit like SWAT, the Colin Farrell film. It doesn't offend or anything. It's
exactly like that.
It's exactly like
it's
SWAT.
Just straight
I was
down
going to
the
say
middle.
that, Kev.
Yeah.
It was the appearance of Samuel L. Jackson that made me also.
That's what elevated up. Yeah,
it's the first.
It was
thing
the
that
machine
jumped to mind.
guns.
Yes, but it's just a straightforward, middle of the road 5 out of 10. It doesn't want to be anything more impressive. It doesn't really sag or make it completely unappealing. But it's there. It's just there as entertainment.
Kev, the film is basically the same as your review there. It was way less controversial than I thought it was going to be.
And I can guarantee you're the only man in history that's ever compared this film to SWAT.
Then again, hang on, which film was it you compared to The Wire? And that was completely off as well.
Sporting Love, wasn't it?
So comparing Song of Freedom to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's coming next.
Earlier on today, before we started recording, I decided to throw open the Twitter floodgates and ask if anyone had any kind of feedback they would like to give us, or any questions they'd like to ask during our recording session tonight. And we've had a couple of responses, so I thought I'd throw them to you guys. Adam Hare, our good friend on Twitter, has asked, could we have Ben Taylorson's favourite amnesia movies, Ben?
I've got 5 for you, I think, and these are kind of off the top of my head. But my all-time favourite amnesia movie is actually a Harrison Ford film called Regarding Henry, which is an absolutely cracking film about.
Good shout.
Choice.
Yeah, he's a total douche who gets shot in an armed robbery and basically loses his memory and has to restart his life and. As a much more sympathetic character, but I love that film. I think it's
it's a good movie.
Uplifting. Others I'd go through in no particular order. Total Recall.
Fair dues.
Talk about amnesia films. Overboard, the old Kurt Russell classic. I mean,
oh my God,
Goldie Hawn.
Kind of 6.
Ben, please stop blowing my mind. Why are you so great?
Don't you hate him?
I mean, Memento is the obvious answer as well, which is obviously a cracking film. Yeah, my last pick would be, again, it's another obvious one, but it's a cracker. The Bourne Identity.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I think once you delve into it, actually, amnesia it's a trope that comes up more often than you might sort of immediately think. But no, I mean, I guess again, going back to my original Regarding Henry, if the listeners haven't picked that one up, it's well worth delving in. Harrison Ford, aside from being all the things he is, can really, really act when he has to.
What I like about your choices there, because when you say amnesia, for a movie, you automatically think thriller, and I don't think all of your picks there were thrillers, which is quite admirable. Regarding Henry, for instance, that's got to be like more of an emotional drama than anything else. Nice one, Ben. Thank you very much. And a question to the wider room. This is from Robert Stroud. Since it's just gone your 1-year anniversary, what's been everyone's pleasant surprise movie? Not necessarily your favourite, but the film you enjoyed more than you thought you would. Smokey?
That's a very good question. I think it's between two for me. Even though the first one, even though I didn't give it a massively high rating, it was just because it was the film that introduced me to an absolute star, and that was Song of Freedom, because I'd never seen a Paul Robeson movie before, and the man was just powerful and magnetic and just dominated the screen. I mean, we gave him the Best Actor award, didn't we, on our Christmas Drunken special? Which is what it should be known. It really should.
Really should.
And yeah, so that was a fantastic surprise, was to discover what a talent Paul Robeson was. But then I guess of more recent times, not so much Cloudburst, because well, it's your fault, Adam. You bigged it up so much that I was expecting something really, really good. So it had to be. So. Yeah, so the Rossiter Case, wasn't expecting that to be as good as it was. It was what a corking drama that was. So yeah, that was a wonderful surprise.
Kevy?
Right, mine's one about a vicar. Meet Simon Cherry. I was not expecting that to be as much fun as it actually was. Yeah,
it's
fine.
all because of the hand crank, isn't it?
Well, there is the hand crank, but then of course there's boxing in it as well. So we're both kind of serviced very handsomely there.
This is true. This is true.
And the pipe smoking. There's lovely pipe smoking action. It's just a really clever little film, and it's one that I've actually watched a couple of times since we did the episode as well, because it's one that I just enjoy to stick on. It's the ideal length for a film when you really can't be asked to.
Sunday lunch film, isn't it?
Definitely,
yeah,
yes,
I can see that.
Yeah. It's either going to be that or a Rathbone and Bruce film, isn't it? And you know exactly what you're getting there as well. But yeah, for me, it's Meet Simon Cherry all the way.
Ben?
It's one of two for me again. I'm agreeing with Smokes. Song of Freedom. For me, I feared either it would be a musical that was so dated I wouldn't really like it, but far from it. The music was fantastic, and it was a really sort of magnetic performance from Paul Robeson. I also feared it might be a little bit culturally insensitive, and yeah, you can make the argument in the second half it was, but not so much that it made me turn away from the film.
Yeah,
so I really enjoyed that.
Nah.
And my other choice would be Dick Barton Strikes Back. Given how low the bar had been set with the first Dick Barton, I went into the second one thinking, oh my god. But what you get is like the best James Bond film that isn't James Bond. It's like James Bond, but like, I know James Bond is British, but it's like the English James Bond, the Northern English James Bond.
It's like what Mission Impossible is to the James Bond franchise. It's almost like such an outsider, but somehow it's brilliant as well.
It's the Mission Impossible TV series versus the Tom Cruise films.
Yeah, it's any film that ends on Blackpool Tower as a weapon of mass destruction requires some kudos, and it gets it from me. So no, to be honest though, throughout all the films we've done, and by my reckoning, let me just have a glance at this point. It is 25 films we've covered now, and for one reason or another, bar one, they've all been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, for mine, it's quite easy. 3 words: river, pat, roll.
I think you'll find that's the prow.
Oh, I thought that film was going to be terrible.
And it was.
Oh, it's a good,
Fisticuffs.
silly film.
So there we have it, 1951's The Black Widow. A bit of a mixed bag, to say the least, but please do check out the film and let us know your thoughts. Well, my friends, our time here is almost at an end, but we will be back soon, with a tale of another Yank on our shores, more murder and lots of blackmail. And you never know, we might end up talking about a film too. In the meantime, should you wish to get in contact with us, you can find her on Twitter and Instagram, or whatever that is, at HouseHammerPod. or you can email us at scream@houseofhammerpodcast.com. Oh, and also, if that's just not good enough for you, and you want to get a little freaky and have us pressed against your flesh, check out our online merchandise store. Yes, that's right, the sellout has already begun. But who cares about selling out when you can look as sexy as by having us either on your chest, your feet, or against your lips? And by that, I mean we're selling t-shirts and mugs. Filthy minds, some of you. The link for the online store will be in this episode's show notes. So until next time, from me, Smokey.
From me, Kev Moore.
From me, Adam Roach.
From me, Ben Tillison.
We wish you all the best, and hope you stay safe, until we can welcome you back through the doors here at the House of Hammer.